Welcome everyone to the FIG webinars. My name is Marco Bortoleto. I'm the president of the FIG Education Commission, and together with my friends, I'm very proud to present another webinar. Today, we are talking about how to be an effective leader in gymnastics. So to address this topic, I would like to introduce our two guests. At first, Dr. Edson Filho. He is an associate professor at the Sports, Exercise, and Performance Psychology at Whitlock College of Education and Human Development at Boston University in the US. Professor Filho, Dr. Edson Filho, has published several articles and be very active in the sports psychology field. And for sure, he has a lot of things to say for us today. For the other hand, we have Daniela CONDE from Argentina. She's graduating in high performance sports and have been involved for many years in gymnastics as a coach in Argentina national team. Daniela has been participating in the London Olympic Games, and she has a FIG brevet coach. So thank you guys to be with us. And I would like to invite Dr. Edson to be with us and start his presentation. Welcome, Edson.
Very happy to be here with you, Dr. Marco Bortoleto, and with Daniela. Looking forward to our discussions. A real pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much to join us, and feel free to start your presentation.
Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Edson Filho. I am an associate professor of sport, exercise, and performance psychology at Boston University, and I'm very happy to be here to talk a little bit about some research and evidence-based practice in coaching leadership. So the fundamental question I will try to answer in an applied way is how to be an effective leader in gymnastics. So what's important to keep in mind is that leadership is a science, right? There are better ways, there are more effective ways to lead. And that's what a lot of the research in sports psychology has been looking at in the past many years, actually. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and hopefully it will be helpful. So there are many definitions of leadership in the literature. Psychologists usually don't agree on definitions, and that's for good reason. Psychology is a complex topic, but when it comes to leadership, there are two things we got to keep in mind. One is that leaders help people to achieve goals. So goal setting is essential. Without good goal setting, you cannot motivate people. Motivation is what? Direction and direction of effort. Direction and intensity of effort. Do you have direction? Without direction, without goal setting, you cannot motivate. You cannot lead, right? Is in the definition of leadership. And it's hard to help people to develop confidence, because confidence, self-efficacy is the mastering of goals, one of the major predictors of confidence. So leadership is this ability to set high quality goals, because once you have high quality goals, you can influence people. You can influence, again, their motivation, you can influence their confidence, you can influence group direction towards a shared goal. So it is very important that you reflect on goal setting, that you talk to your athletes about it, that you study it. Otherwise, it is hard to lead. And goal setting is a moving target, right? You have a goal in the beginning of the season, something happened, you change the goal. So it's a reflection on the established goals is very important for leadership. So I just mentioned that leaders influence many psychological processes, motivation, confidence, leadership in itself, and also well-being and burnout, for instance, increasing well-being in preventing burnout. So essentially, leaders, they impact a lot of psychological process, but also the satisfaction of their athletes, their followers, right? So you want to increase performance, you want to increase psychosocial functioning, but you also want to prevent, right, poor satisfaction, low levels of well-being. You want to prevent burnout. So leadership has this capability of optimizing team performance and team outcomes. So leaders are different than managers. Leaders provide vision, they inspire people. Again, they set high quality goals. Managers, they have a supervisory role. They check if people are doing their work, if they are on time, and etc. Right? There's some overlap, but ideally you want to be a leader. You might have a boss that's just a line manager. Leaders, again, they provide high quality goals, they motivate, they influence well-being, they prevent burnout, they inspire people. So it is important to keep this in mind. And a way to develop leadership is to know about the research and the effective theories in leadership in sports. So I thought I would talk about leadership theories, but in a very practical way. So I have one slide for multiple different leadership theories, and hopefully it's going to be helpful. So we are going to cover 7 leadership theories: trait, behavioral, situational, multidimensional leadership theory in sport, transactional theories, leader-member exchange, transformational leadership, and authentic leadership. And I ask you to reflect which one, as I go through the content, which theory I find more interesting and why, which one relates more to my work, and so forth. So trait approaches is the idea that there are traits, personality traits, that every successful leader has. So the question is, which traits successful leaders have, and can I develop those traits? It initially, was thought that people are born with these traits, with these abilities, which I'm not sure is very effective, right? Because you want to believe that you can develop some of those traits. And in practice, you want to reflect which similar qualities leaders have. Are they good communicators? Are they good at setting goals? Are they organized? Are they decisive, right? Which traits leaders have? And in gymnastics, within the many different disciplines, which traits are important to manage difficult situations, to inspire people, to energize team processes. So which traits should I be developing and why? It's an important point of reflection. Behavioral theories are focus on the action component, right? What you can see, the behavior that you can see and measure, and specifically say, look, what are some of the things that leaders do? What are some of the behaviors that they engage in that explain why they are successful? So you want to think about reactive behaviors. Something happened during practice, during competition, within the club that you work with, and then do you reinforce that behavior? What kind of technical instruction you provide when athletes make mistakes or do something right? Do you ignore mistakes? What do you do to keep control of practice and competition? So something happened, you react, right? You want to observe those. Another way to see it is spontaneous behaviors. Nothing happened, and the leader provide technical instruction, provide positive feedback, encouragement, communicate with athletes, make sure that practice and competition, whatever it is, organized, right? So you want to be reflecting on those, right? Which kind of spontaneous behaviors are effective for me and why, and which kind of reactive behaviors work better or not, right? Open, clear communication is important. Providing quality technical feedback is important. Athletes respect technical instruction, right? Being supportive is important, right? Positive support. So what are some of the behaviors that I might be engaging in that can help me to be a successful leader? So effective leaders from a behavioral standpoint, they are positive, and they provide clear feedback and technical instruction. Athletes trust positive coaches and coaches that know their staff. They provide good feedback, so they know the sport. Athletes respect that. In terms of peer leaders, athletes, leading athletes, they are different types. There is task peer leaders that are very good at a task. There are social peer leaders that help with group cohesion, social cohesion. There are motivational peer leaders that energize the team, that energize practice. And there's external peer leaders that talk to the coaches, talk to the press. So it is important that within your practice, within your team, within your organization, you also help to develop different peer leaders that exhibit different types of behaviors. Situational theory talks about the interaction leader-athlete situation. And what is important is that you can modify your behavior so it fits better with the situation, or you modify the situation so the followers, the athletes, perform better. So always this interaction, leader, athlete situation. And sometimes in sports, you also have the parents, right? Leader, the coach, the parents, and the athlete. So how all of those fit together and what can be changed in order to achieve better performance. Life cycle theory is about the leader adjusting his, her, their approach to the followers. There is a few things that change: how much support athletes need and how much direct behavior athletes need. For instance, early novices, right, early in their career, athletes might need a lot of direction and a lot of support. As athletes become more proficient, higher level athletes, they might need less direction. They know what to do, but they might still need a lot of support, emotional support, logistical support, and so forth. So it is important to consider the level of expertise of your athlete in situational theories. Another interesting situational theory is path goal theory. Essentially speaks about the idea that leaders, coaches, they help to facilitate the goals of athletes. And it is particularly important that you help to facilitate these goals during challenges, barriers, transitions. Athletes get injured, they transition to a higher level of competition, they get deselected, they move countries, they move states. During those challenges, during those difficult transitions, leaders and coaches are particularly important to help athletes to maintain high quality goals, high quality direction. Another situational theory is multidimensional leadership theory in sports. Talks about antecedents, what's the situation, what are the leader and member characteristics. Talks about the behaviors for that situation, what's required, what you should do in order to have better performance and higher satisfaction. What is preferred by the athletes, and what's the actual behavior of the leader. So when the leader behavior matches the required action with the preferred action by the athletes, there is higher performance and higher satisfaction. So it's when everything comes together, what's required for the situation, what's preferred by the athletes, then is when you have higher performance and higher satisfaction. Obviously, not always that happens, but it's interesting to consider this theory very influential. So multidimensional leadership theory has can be operationalized, right, in 5 dimensions. What are some of the training instruction behaviors that leaders engage in? Is this leader more democratic? Is this leader more autocratic? How much social support the leader provides? How much positive feedback the leader provides? So again, for every situation and every group of athletes, right? There is a level of training instruction, there is a level of democratic and autocratic behavior, and an amount of social support and positive feedback that will lead to better satisfaction and better outcomes. And these are 5 factors to consider as you engage in any situation in sports. Leader-member exchange theory is simple. It's a transaction between leaders and followers. The better the transaction, right, the better the leadership and the outcomes. So, the quality of the training environment, the quality, how much athletes get, logistical and financial and emotional support. The better this exchange, the better the leadership, the better the performance, the better the well-being and satisfaction of everybody involved in the group. So transformational leadership, leaders want to transform. They want to transform the athletes. It's beyond the self. It's beyond the ego of the athlete and the leader. You want to transform to a new higher level self. So it's a lot about the good of the group, involve transformation of the individuals from their current selves to possible selves through intellectual stimulation. You stimulate, you challenge athletes and performers to think outside of the box, if you will. You provide individualized consideration, meaning you have that attention, right? That athlete-centered perspective. You provide optimal influence. Athletes look up to you, right, as an ideal of behavior, of practice, of what a sport should represent. And you're also good with motivation. And for you to be good with motivation, again, what kind of motivational climate you establish? What are the qualities of the goals so people can remain motivated? Do you provide them with autonomy? Do you provide them with relatedness? Do you provide them with social possibility to interact? So very influential leadership theory as well. Authentic leadership is simple in a way. If you are your authentic self, if people perceive you as a genuine person, as a genuine coach, you are more effective as a leader. The way you talk to them, the feedback you provide, if they perceive as being genuine, they will follow you. If they perceive that yourself is not a genuine and authentic person, leadership won't be as good. So what are the practical points? You need to understand, you need to reflect, you need to develop self-awareness so you can become your most authentic self, right? Develop authentic relationships with your followers, with your athletes, and being transparent, being open, being trustworthy, and also emphasizing the athlete, the follower development. Very interesting approach as well, because again, it talks about as you develop yourself, as you develop your authentic self, you become a better leader. We'll talk a little bit about some consequences of leadership, both for the individual athlete and for group processes. So one of the consequences of the leadership is the quality of the coach-athlete relationship, right? How effective, depending on how effective leadership is, the better the relationship between coaches and athletes. So you need to also think about the impact, the consequence of leadership in terms of the performance. Prize winning, are the athletes being successful when they compete? But also, are they developing as expected, right? Maybe they are not winning yet as much as you'd like, but they are developing towards that, right? And maybe it's not only about winning, but also developing emotionally, socially, and so forth. So you got to think about the long-term athletic development as the athlete develops over time, right? And also the personal development, emotional, social learning. So a few dimensions, right, for you to reflect on the consequence of leadership. And again, the better the coach-athlete relationship, the better the impacts on performance, athletic development, and personal development. Another consequence of leadership is development of peer leaders. Leaders create other leaders. So identify potential leaders, empower them, right? Empower peer leaders by delegating responsibility and authority to them. So they can be external leaders, they can be task leaders, they can be motivational leaders, they can be social leaders. And keep communication open and direct, because again, people know if you're being authentic, right? People know if they can trust you, if you are really open to listening and interacting, developing. But developing peer leaders is one of the consequences of good leadership. Good leaders create other leaders. And in terms of group dynamics, team dynamics, leadership impacts many other team processes, as we say. It impacts cohesion, why people come and stick together, right? That's cohesion. It impacts team coordination, athletes being at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. It impacts team mental models. That's this idea of knowledge shared by teammates. How much knowledge they share, how much knowledge they bring that's unique, right? Is knowledge of how to do something, why to do it, right? When to do it. And collective efficacy, that's trust. We can do something and we will do something. So these four group processes are very important for the development of high performing teams. Some of the research that I've done myself, and again, some of the four key ingredients for high performing teams, and it is important that that you know that, because if you develop good leadership skills, you're impacting many other group processes as well. So just a quick summary. So coach leadership approach impact the quality of the coach-athlete relationship, right? Both the personal and the athletic development of athletes, as well as their performance. And you want athletes to develop, to perform well, and to feel well, right? Excel well, performing at high level, but also feeling well. Another, impact of good leadership is the development of peer leaders. Again, good leaders create other good leaders, and also impacts team dynamics and team outcomes, other team process cohesion, team mental models, collective efficacy, and coordination. And one thing for you to reflect is which theoretical approach is more relevant for you, or how can you use elements of all of them? Which traits can you develop? Which behaviors, reactive and spontaneous, can you include in your practice? Which situations can you change, right? How can you impact some sports situations by considering what's required of the situation, what the athletes prefer, and what you should do, right? That's multidimensional leadership theory. You also got to think about the quality of that transaction. Sometimes, athletes might be thinking a transactional way. So the better the transaction, the better the leadership. But, some of the most recent models, if you will, you want eventually to transform people, right? So they become their best selves, and you got to do that by intellectual stimulation, by providing individual consideration, among other things, to transform them. And authentic leadership, again, being authentic, people know if you are genuine, and if you are genuine, you're more likely to be transparent, to be open, to empower people, and that will impact the quality of your leadership. So reflect on all of these theories, reflect on the impact that coaching leadership can have on your athletes, and I look forward to discussing this further in the webinar.
So thank you very much, Edson, for this amazing presentation. So we have a lot now to understand better about leadership. So to continue our conversation, I would like to invite Daniela to come and have this conversation about leadership in gymnastics. So Daniela, please join us.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here with you.
So Daniela, based in your long experience working as a gymnastics coach, what aspects would you highlight to become a good team leader?
First, I want to highlight the importance of empathy. Empathy should be at the center of our leadership. I know because I was there that we don't always think of high performance and empathy going hand in hand, but they can, and more important, they must. So empathy for me is one of the pillars of successful leadership because we need it for connection, we need it for building trust, and it's the antidote to shame. So the second aspect I want to highlight is building trust. Trust is the one thing that changes everything. Trust is not just a nice quality to have, it's absolutely essential because trust is secondary to influence. Without it, everything can fall apart. With trust, a sustainable, long-term athletic process is possible. And the tricky thing about trust is that it's built in small moments. It's the sum of small moments over time. I promise you, telling your athlete, you have to trust me, doesn't work. Trust cannot be demanded or forced. We build it each day or it doesn't exist. So coaches always ask me, how can I make my athletes listen to me? And I always ask them, do you listen to them? So I think that a really important thing is that when they trust you, they hear you. So for me, empathy and trust are really important for great leadership.
Oh, thanks a lot, Daniela. That's exactly we need to listen from coaches who are working in the field every day. Thank you.
Professor Edson, thank you very much for the presentation and for sharing your studies. Based on what can be learned from scientific research, what skills do successful leaders develop to effectively guide their teams?
Thank you very much. I mean, your answer was amazing about empathy and trust. There are many things, right? Sports psychology is a very complex topic, but I highlight goal setting because without high quality goals, people cannot motivate direction of effort. They cannot lead people towards a goal. They cannot develop confidence, right? Self-efficacy, that's task-specific confidence, is dependent on the mastery of goals. So goal setting is very important. Another thing is communication, right? And communication, it's interpersonal, how you talk to yourself, interpersonal, how you talk to others, and also the non-verbals, right? And they are all connected. So you gotta communicate with your athletes. That interpersonal communication has to be outstanding, right? As you said, and it's based on active listening. People know if you are listening to them, right? That's theory of mind. So that interpersonal communication is very important, but it has to be congruent with your non-verbals, and it has to be congruent with your self-talk. So you have to work all of that to have to be impactful. And one last thing that that I would highlight is that you got to be open, right? We talk so much about openness as a personality trait, but also that growth mindset. But you got to be open to change your leadership styles. Sometimes you might need to be decisive, right? You make the decision. Sometimes you might need to be democratic. Sometimes you might need is a transaction. Sometimes it's transformation, as I try to explain in the lecture. But so you got to be open to change, not only, hey, that's my way. That interaction approach is very important, but it must be fair. If you're not fair, people will lose the group, right? This procedural fairness, right? Good intentions and good actions, right? How you proceed, it's very important. So all of those, I talk about communication, goal setting, and self-talking. So everything's connected in psychology. But if I can highlight goal setting, communication, being open, and being fair.
So thank you, both of you. It's a very interesting approach you are bringing from the experience in the field, training people, coaching people, and from the other side, building science to understand human psychology. So this combination for me, it makes gymnastics much better. So Daniela, I have another question. You already said some important tips for the coaches to be a good leadership. Do you have any other advice to help gymnastics coach to lead their athletes to change and to improve their performance?
I think it's really important to learn how to create a safe and brave environment in the gym. And in order to do that, we need to build psychological safety, and also we need to motivate our athletes. Psychological safety basically is the belief that it's safe to speak up and even make mistakes. It's a sense of confidence that your voice is valued. Psychological safety, it's not the goal, it's the means to the goal. The goal, of course, is excellence and commitment to high-quality training. Also, sharing a sense of purpose. I want this because it's really important to me and also to my team. This is bigger than us, and our actions contribute to make a positive impact in the world. So finally, if you have psychological safety and commitment to excellence, that's the learning zone. That's the high performance zone. It's like Disney for coaches. I mean, really, it's the place where we want to be and where magic happens.
Well, thank you very much. This is something that everybody must listen carefully and use in the everyday working. So I know Professor Edson wants to ask you something. So please, Edson, join us.
Daniela, one of the things that I'm very curious about to add to our discussion is what are some of the psychological challenges that coaches experience, right? That are unique to coaching, and how these challenges might impact leadership and the ability to lead.
Gymnastics coaches often face significant psychological challenges, such as managing their own expectations, dealing with pressure to achieve results, and finding a balance between supporting and pushing their athletes. These challenges can affect our ability to lead if we are not addressed with a focus on emotional resilience and mental clarity. As Phil Jackson said, you're only as good as your ability to remain calm under pressure. So because of that, I emphasize skills like self-compassion. I love Christine Neff's work, equanimity, and patience, not just as personal strengths, but as leadership tools. When coaches learn to approach these challenges with a sense of hope and self-awareness, they're able to foster a more supportive environment for their athletes. By managing our emotions, we lead by example and can inspire our athletes to face adversity with courage.
Thank you very much, for all your insights. I definitely learned a lot, and hopefully everybody enjoyed the presentation as well. Thank you.
So we have to say thank you for both of you. But before we finish this webinar, I have a surprising question for both of you. I would like to know from Edson and from Daniela, if you have a good advice for coaches, what should we avoid to be a good leadership? What we cannot do it if we want to be a very good leader in gymnastics. Do you have any recommendations?
For me, we need humility. We need the capacity to say, we don't know this, because a path is an uncertainty. I mean, it's not without setbacks. And of course, we don't know everything. It's not possible with our human beings. So I think humility is a really essential value that we have to practice as a coaches.
That's a terrific question. I think we cannot underestimate the importance of feedback. By definition, textbook definition, we need feedback to learn. So, and you're learning motor skills, we're learning emotional skills, we're learning social skills. So I think coaches need to really reflect on how they give feedback. There is a lot of scientific literature out there. And so what are the best ways to give feedback so athletes are less likely to choke under pressure, that they're more likely to learn how to regulate their emotions, that they're going to learn better, right? So I think that's a very important piece, right? Because for you to develop towards that excellence that Coach Daniela mentioned, you need to continue to learn, and feedback is an essential piece for that. So hopefully that answered a little bit, and thank you very much once again.
Yes, for sure. I absolutely understand that psychology is not a simple thing to develop. We are talking about something complex. Human beings are complex systems. So that's why we have to be careful about all these aspects you highlight in our webinars today.
Coaches, you are much more than your athlete's results. A number don't define your ability and value as a coach. Never underestimate the power you have. And because all power carries great responsibility, own your responsibility to create a path aligned with your true values.
One last word from me is that, the research shows, applied research, that sports psychology interventions work better with coaching support. So either, if you're delivering the intervention because you have the training, but if you're working with somebody, that coaching support amplify, right, the impact at the individual level and also at the group level, those leadership skills that we discussed. So embrace it. And once again, thank you. I think that's wonderful to see this initiative for coaches, because as Daniela said, the impact they have, you cannot measure.
So my dear friends, thank you so much for your contributions. We hope our gymnastics community enjoyed this webinar, and we hope the FIG Education Commissions continue to develop in other topics in these webinars. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you in another opportunity. Bye-bye. Thank you.